The HOA shut down a veterans neighborhood jam session with threats and fines, calling it a public nuisance. At the center of it all stood Judith Kellerman, a clipboard-wielding president who used rules like weapons. But Travis had one move left. He took the stage at the county fair and brought the whole town with him. And just wait until you hear how this battle ended with a roar of applause and justice restored. Friday nights had a rhythm in Travis Cook's neighborhood. Not just a musical one, but a heartbeat. Every week around 6, families rolled their folding chairs down to the end of the cul-de-sac. Kids tugged their parents by the hand, and neighbors came carrying takeout bags, coolers, and that rare thing in modern suburbia, a genuine smile. It all centered around one garage. Travis Cook, 42, ex-Army mechanic, grease under his fingernails, guitar in hand. His best friend Marco, Marine, now truck driver, kept time on drums like his life depended on it. And Ethan, Travis's 15-year-old son, who played bass like he was trying to talk to the world with sound. They called themselves the Friday Night Veterans, but really, they weren't trying to be a band. It started small. Just 3 guys needing something good in the week. Then neighbors heard them play and started showing up. By fall, it was a tradition. Some called it the best part of the week. Others called it therapy with a beat. But not everyone liked it. That Friday, the air was cooler than usual. The band was halfway through Sweet Home Alabama when a sound even louder than the music screeched down the street. A golf cart, white, polished, HOA issued, came rolling in like a tank through a garden party. At the wheel sat Judith Kellerman, HOA president, late 60s, precision-cut bob, mirrored sunglasses, clipboard like a sword. And this time, a megaphone in her lap. The music stopped mid-chorus. She didn't even say hello. "This is not a sanctioned event," she announced through the megaphone, her voice sharp and metallic. "Effective immediately, all noise after 6 p.m. is in violation of Article 7, Section B of Community Standards. Practice time is over." There was a beat of silence. Then the crowd murmured in disbelief. Travis stepped forward, still holding his guitar like a question. "Judith, it's just us. We've been doing this for almost a year. No one's complained." She lowered her sunglasses. "Now someone has." He frowned. "Who?" "Doesn't matter. You're disturbing the peace." She handed him a neatly folded letter with an embossed HOA seal, like it had been prepped days ago. Across the top, in bold red ink, "Cease and desist." Below, a fine of $1,200 for continued public nuisance, unauthorized gathering, and amplified sound without approval. Ethan, who had just finished setting up his amp, looked over. His mouth parted slightly. "Dad, that's more than I make in a summer." He wasn't being dramatic. His voice cracked a little. Travis stared at the letter, stunned. This wasn't a warning. This was a shutdown. Around them, lawn chairs folded quietly. Neighbors packed up their things, throwing sympathetic glances, but keeping their heads down. Marco unplugged his drum kit with tight lips and eyes full of heat. And just like that, the music was gone. What once felt like the soul of the neighborhood had been stripped away with a signature and a statute. And standing in the middle of it all was Travis, holding a guitar that suddenly felt a whole lot heavier. At first, the neighborhood stood up for Travis. A petition made its rounds, handwritten signatures from dozens of residents who had spent countless Friday nights singing along or just sitting peacefully on the curb, listening. People wrote heartfelt notes in the margins. "My kids love this. This brought us together. Please don't take this away." They submitted the stack of papers at the next HOA meeting, neatly clipped and respectful. Travis even wore a collared shirt and waited patiently for his name to be called. But Judith Kellerman didn't even pretend to read it. "Thank you," she said coolly, adjusting her reading glasses without looking up. "But the rules regarding community disturbance are clear." Someone in the back asked if the rules could be amended. Judith smiled tightly, that smug little curl at the corner of her mouth. "Rules are rules," she repeated, her voice slicing through the room like a cold wind. Flanking her were 2 board members, Dawn and Claire, who nodded in rhythm, though it was clear they hadn't attended a single Friday session or even knew what kind of music was played. They didn't need facts. They had Judith. From that moment on, things got worse. The fines didn't stop. In fact, they multiplied. Travis got cited for anticipated noncompliance, a term no one could find in the bylaws. One Friday, they didn't even take out the instruments, yet 2 separate anonymous complaints were filed within the hour. HOA security started circling Travis's cul-de-sac every Friday evening like clockwork. Bright yellow vests, clipboards, phone cameras. One neighbor said she overheard Judith joking that Travis's garage was the new crime scene. Marco, who had always been the level-headed one, finally cracked one night. They were sitting in Travis's garage, just the two of them. The instruments sat untouched, still draped in their covers. Ethan was upstairs doing homework, earbuds in. "I can't keep doing this, man," Marco muttered, staring down at his boots. "I got a kid in college. If they hit me with another fine..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Travis nodded slowly. He understood. They all had lives, responsibilities, limits, but something in him resisted. Not the way it used to in the military, where resistance came from instinct. This was different. This was personal. He clenched his jaw and looked at the silent drum set, at his own calloused fingers. "This isn't just about music anymore," he said quietly. "It's about whether people like Judith get to decide who belongs and who doesn't. Whether a clipboard gives her the right to crush the one thing that makes people feel like a community." Marco didn't answer, but he didn't walk out either. Still, when the garage door creaked shut that night and the cul-de-sac stayed silent, Travis couldn't help but wonder if maybe Judith had already won. If fear was stronger than rhythm. The worst part wasn't the fines or the silence. It was the growing sense that the HOA wasn't trying to enforce order anymore. They were trying to erase something joyful, something real. And that kind of erasure, done with a smile, hidden behind rules, was harder to fight than Travis had ever imagined. Travis had always kept to himself more than people realized. Sure, he was friendly. He'd help you with your car, lend a ladder, wave from his driveway. But deep down, he was a man who didn't ask for much and didn't stir trouble. But he wasn't just a mechanic with a guitar and a teenage son. He was also Staff Sergeant Travis Cook, retired Gulf War veteran. And Judith Kellerman had just picked the wrong man to back into a corner. He hadn't served overseas, watched good men fall, and come home only to be told that a Friday night jam session was a threat to order. That weekend, as he sat in his kitchen, looking at the stack of HOA fines and thinking about the silence that had settled over his neighborhood like a fog, something clicked. He didn't need to fight the HOA on their terms. He didn't need their permission. He picked up the phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. It rang twice. "Rita Ellis," came the voice on the other end, warm but sharp as ever. "Rita, it's Travis Cook." There was a pause, then a cheerful laugh. "The Garage Band General, you still playing those ridiculous covers?" "You tell me," he replied. "You still running the county cultural committee?" "I am." "Well then," Travis said, "how would you like the Friday Night Veterans to headline something a little bigger than a cul-de-sac?" He told her everything, what the HOA had done, how they'd shut him down, how they were policing silence. Rita didn't interrupt. When he finished, there was a long pause on the line. "You know," she finally said, "you guys were the soul of last year's Memorial Day BBQ. Kids dancing, old folks tapping canes to the beat. That wasn't music, Travis. That was community." "Then let's bring it back." By Monday, she'd called the county fair board. By Tuesday, contracts were signed, and by Friday, fresh posters started appearing in store windows, community boards, and local diners. The Friday Night Veterans live at the county fair, main stage, 8 p.m. Saturday. It was bold, it was real, and it was entirely out of HOA reach. The poster even had a photo of Travis, Marco, and Ethan, smiling in front of their garage, amps behind them, drums stacked high. It was the exact image Judith had tried to erase, and now it was on display for thousands to see. Judith saw it the next morning, right outside the grocery store. Her face froze like someone had thrown ice water down her spine. By noon, she was marching up Travis's driveway in her signature khakis and HOA lanyard, waving her clipboard like a badge. "This is outrageous," she spat. "That fair is on county property. You're undermining this association with unauthorized promotion." Travis looked up from polishing his guitar and calmly removed his sunglasses. "I know," he said. "That's the best part. It's outside your jurisdiction." For a second, she opened her mouth, then closed it again. There were no fines she could issue, no bylaws she could twist, no patrols she could send. For the first time, Travis saw it in her eyes. She wasn't in control anymore. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to, because some victories don't need to be shouted. They just need to be heard. And come Saturday night, the whole county was going to hear them. The county fairgrounds hadn't seen a crowd like that in years. Cars were lined up for blocks. Families unloaded coolers and lawn blankets. Teenagers carried homemade signs that read, "Garage Rebellion Forever," and "Bring Back the Beat." There were American flags, military hats, kids with plastic guitars, and somewhere near the funnel cake stand, someone had even painted "Free the Friday Nights" across a white sheet and hung it like a banner. Nearly 10,000 people flooded in that evening, not just for the rides or the corn dogs or the tilt-a-whirl, but to hear three guys from a cul-de-sac remind everyone what a community sounded like when it stood together. Backstage, Travis adjusted the collar of his custom-made leather vest. On the back, in bold white letters, it said, "Garage Rebellion." Below it, a small embroidered patch read, "Estet in Defiance." Marco cracked his knuckles beside the drums. Ethan, nerves electric, tuned his bass one last time. Then the announcer's voice echoed across the fairgrounds. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Friday Night Veterans." The stage lights flared. The crowd roared. As they stepped into the glow, a sea of faces rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, some even wiping away tears. Travis didn't speak. He just strummed the opening chord to "Born to be Wild," and the energy snapped through the crowd like a match in dry grass. By the third song, people were dancing in the aisles. But the biggest moment came halfway through the set, when the mayor himself walked on stage. He held a wooden plaque, polished and gleaming. Into the microphone he said, "This is what community spirit looks like. This is what happens when music brings us together, not rules that try to tear us apart. On behalf of the county board, it is my honor to present the 2025 Community Unity Award to Travis Cook and the Friday Night Veterans." The crowd erupted. Travis accepted it with a stunned smile, tipping his head to the mayor, but not before glancing at Ethan, whose face said everything: pride, relief, victory. By Sunday, local media picked up the story. Photos of the performance hit front pages and news feeds across the county. Garage band silenced by HOA, now county fair headliners. The article quoted neighbors who had never spoken publicly before. "We were tired of being told to sit down and be quiet. These guys gave our Fridays back." HOA inboxes flooded with emails. Residents showed up at the next monthly meeting with their own clipboards and a clear message: change. Within weeks, an emergency vote was called. Judith Kellerman was voted out in a landslide. Not just removed, disbanded. The board was overhauled with new members who promised transparency, fairness, and most of all, respect for the community's voice. Friday nights didn't just return, they got bigger. Under a new partnership with the County Parks Department, the Friday Night Veterans were granted a public space permit to perform every other week at the local amphitheater. Families brought picnic baskets, food trucks lined the street. Veterans groups and youth choirs even started joining in. What had once been a garage jam turned into a local movement. But Travis never forgot where it started, or who tried to end it. In his garage, now transformed into a modest home studio, a single frame hangs on the back wall. Inside it, the original cease and desist letter Judith handed him that bitter night. Below it, a gold-plated plaque reads, "Banned by the HOA, booked by the people." Every time Travis walks past it, he doesn't feel anger anymore. He feels proof that sometimes the best music isn't what you play. It's what you stand for when someone tries to shut you down And this time, the music played louder than ever.